Kofi measuring the champion. Trouble in paradise.
So being a black kid in the 90s, I didn't have many live action black superheroes. I mean, I had Blank Man, Steel, and the best was really like Super Dude and Zack from the Power Rangers. Which weren't all that bad, but I'm not gonna lie, it just wasn't it. But then I remember flipping through the channels in my living room on a random Saturday. I saw this guy in a black shirt, track pants, on a headset, talking trash, just like this.
Well, obviously The Rock is here. Obviously he's just checked Mankind in to the SmackDown Hotel on the corner of Know Your Role Boulevard and Jabroni Drive. Maybe a little thirsty, Mankind. You want some water here?
This guy was putting a whooping on this fat guy, even put him through an announce table. This guy had crazy sideburns and was a complete badass. And he was a black man. And he was the champion. His name was The Rock. I identified with this guy. I can't explain it fully, but just him trash talking, whooping guys in $500 shirts. He had this swagger about him. He had his gold chain around his neck. I haven't seen anything like this since primetime Deion Sanders. It's like this guy was really him. And from this day forward, I was forever a wrestling fan. Now, at the time, I didn't know I looked at The Rock as a black superhero, but looking back on it, I did. Now, as I started watching the WWF, more and more I would grow to love other wrestlers, such as the Hardy Boys, D'Lo Brown, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, Kane, and Rikishi, especially Rikishi. This big dude that could do Michael Jackson moves, but also whoop you in the ring. Like, come on, what's not to love? You know, outside of him putting his big old booty in people's faces, I mean, even that I kind of liked. I don't know why. Don't judge me. Don't judge me, y'all. And then the fall of 2000 would happen, where Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was gone for most of the year, would make his triumphant return to the WWF after being gone from neck surgery, and more importantly, he will come back to find out who ran him over with the car. And it would be found out that it was Rikishi. What? Dance breaking, putting butts in faces, Rikishi ran over Stone Cold with its infamous line, "I did it for The Rock." Yes, fun-loving, dancing, too cool Rikishi is the one that ran over Stone Cold, taking him out of action for almost a year. And when asked why he did it, well, of course he did it for The Rock, like I said before, but he also said he did it because the WWF always had the Great White Hope. Now, as a 19-year-old kid who just started watching wrestling over a year ago, I didn't quite understand the context of what Rikishi was saying. I had no clue who Billy Graham was, Bob Backlund, or even your Hulk Hogan's, to be honest. I mean, the Hulk Hogan I knew was a guy that starred in Thunder in Paradise and the Three Ninjas. I didn't even know him to be part of the WWF. I know that's crazy, right? I know, it's crazy. But also the Great White Hope meant nothing to me as a 10-year-old. It would be about a couple years before I started getting conscious about what it really meant to be a black in America. If you know, you know.
Oh, my brother, testify!
Now, as the years went by, The Rock would eventually leave for Hollywood, and I would have to find a new favorite wrestler, which that would wind up being Shawn Michaels, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio. However, as I started to get into my mid-teens, I started to really learn about the history of not only the WWF, but of the wrestling business as a whole. Watching shoot interviews on YouTube, which was a whole new platform at the time, reading message boards like NoDQ.com, and even buying wrestling DVDs. I was becoming what you call a smart fan. And it was exciting. It was intriguing. It was fun to learn all this new information, finding out that Ric Flair was more than just Triple H's sidekick, and that Farouk, formerly known as Ron Simmons, was a world champion in WCW. Like, what? And then I gradually started to notice, where are all the black world champions?
WWF has always been all about the great white hope.
Like, I know Booker T was a five-time WCW champion, sucker. I know Ron Killings was an NWA champion, but that was pretty much it. Through the history of the wrestling business, there's only a handful of black world champions. And my thought was, that's not cool. Like, it bummed me out once I had that realization. But through it all, I still cultivated a love for wrestling. And then ECW would come back along, and guys like Bobby Lashley and Mark Henry would start to get shine as ECW champions. But even still, it was like, I guess this is the best we're going to get. Because as a wrestling fan, you know, even if you're a casual fan, that the world title and WWE title is the title to have in the company. So it's kind of like, just gotta take what you're gonna get, right? I had to see people get looked over like MVP and Shelton Benjamin couldn't become a world champion, but yet Jack Swagger and Sheamus were world champions? Not to quote The Miz, but really? Really? These guys, in my opinion, were nowhere near championship material, and it will prove to be true. But they would take a risk on guys like your Swaggers and your Sheamuses. And yes, in 2006, we did get All Hail King Booker! Yes, we did get King Booker in 2006 after winning King of the Ring. But mind you, this was about 3-4 years kind of late, as the people, the fans, those are the people that matter, were wanting Booker to be champion in 2003 when he should have won the title at WrestleMania versus Triple H. But for some reason, it just wasn't deemed good enough.
That's your role. Your job is to make people like me laugh, and you're very good at it. With your nappy hair and your suckers. Somebody like you doesn't get to be a world champion.
Yeah. But we got King Booker and 3 6 Mafia. Then comes along the world's strongest man, who will end up beating Randy Orton for the World Heavyweight Championship, entering people into the Hall of Pain. And when I say Mark Henry was really showing out, finally, we had a champion that was taken serious, a champion that was the real deal, and Mark freaking Henry in the fall of 2011. For over a decade, he was given BS after BS, having to deal with the hand, having to deal with, oh my God, geez, sweet Jesus, you have a penis, all that, and overcame all the bullying, all the missed pushes, all the BS, and finally got his time to shine. However, just like with King Booker, it will just be a moment in time, and Mark Henry will never become a world champion again. Speaking of late 2000s, I remember seeing a guy in late 2009 that looked like he was finally getting a push, to my surprise. And then on one special night on Monday Night Raw in Madison Square Garden, this guy would wind up putting Randy Orton through a table and have the whole crowd going crazy. Now, for those that weren't there for the beginnings of Kofi Kingston was basically like a video game character. Like, if you saw him during the ECW days, like, he would just do moves in the air. It was like, it wasn't human. Like, you shouldn't be able to do that as a human being. As a human specimen, you shouldn't be able to do the moves that Kofi was doing in the ring, outside the ring. And hysterically, he dropped the Miss Cleo accent randomly. It's just started being himself. And I think that's what connected with the people. It looked like going into early 2010 that the sky was the limit for Kofi Kingston. But eventually, we all will find out that, in the words of Chris Rock, the limit was the sky. As it took one bad match, one bad move, one quote-unquote botch for Randy Orton to go Randy Orton and de-push Kofi Kingston just like that. And just as soon as he was getting pushed to the main event, he was pushed back down to the mid-card. Which I still don't understand what was so bad about what Kofi did in the ring, as it's wrestling. You can improvise. It's not something that you have to do to a T. You can make this up, guys. They don't know what your move is supposed to be. Only you guys know. But yeah, Randy Orton, who has gotten chance after 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 chance, after he effed up how many times? Yet he has the gall, he has the nerve to be looking down on someone else for making a mistake?
Because basically, that's just called being black in America.
So for the next 5 years, Kofi Kingston will be relegated to the mid-card, doing a whole bunch of nothing. Now, during those 5 years, there was another energetic, high-flying guy that made his way on the scene in WWE. His name was Consequences Creed. I'm sorry, no. Xavier Woods. I'm sorry. You knew him as Xavier Woods. I knew him as Consequences Creed back in TNA, when TNA was actually good. Now, some people argue that he was doing an Apollo Creed gimmick. I argue he was actually doing a Afro Thunder gimmick from Ready to Rumble, the video game, which, knowing Xavier Woods, would not be surprised. But neither here nor there, I knew Consequences Creed. He was in the X Division. He was a high flyer. Like I said, he was exciting. He was very energetic. And when I found out that he was coming to WWE, I was like, well, let's see how this goes. And then they made him part of the Funkadactyl faction. And it did what it did, but it was nothing special. Xavier Woods was going out there every night dancing. At least he had Naomi and Cameron with him, the beautiful cheerleaders. But outside of that, it's just like, So Xavier was with Brodus Clay. Then after that, he was with R-Truth, who he was with in TNA for a short period of time as they were tag team champions. But Xavier never really got out the gate, in my opinion. He never really got to do anything outside of be a high, energetic break dancer. So, yeah, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, good luck with that. However, there was somebody around the same time in 2013, 2014, who also made his way on the scene in WWE, or should I say NXT, and Big E Langston. Now, this is something we haven't seen before, or haven't seen in a very long time. A powerhouse, brick house, fast, explosive athlete that could just dominate his opponent and he will end up defeating Seth Rollins to become the NXT champion. This was the very beginning stages of what we would know to be the black and gold NXT era. And Big E, he wasn't that great on the mic. He was not really given much outside of something unique and special of the 5 count. Yes, he was so dominant that he would beat up opponents and beat them with a 5 count. And so he eventually goes to the main roster. He's put alongside of Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee. He's made to be the muscle for Dolph Ziggler, who was looking like he was finally getting pushed as well to the main event. Dolph Ziggler does team with Big E at WrestleMania 29 versus Daniel Bryan and Kane for the tag team championships. So Big E gets a big look in his first year on the main roster. Dolph Ziggler wins the world title the night after, as we all know. And nothing really happens after that. Dolph Ziggler gets injured and is stuck in the mid-card. This seems like deja vu. Meanwhile, Big E does win the Intercontinental Championship, but this is during a time to where they didn't really care about that title. So Big E, after a while, was just a guy who would sit around, stand around, arms folded, no real personality. They tried for a little short period of time for him to be somewhat of a preacher gimmick. But outside of that, during this time, the creativity was just stagnant. Like the mid-2010s, early 2010s, just creativity, the ability by WWE management to make new stars or want to make new stars outside of Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, or keep up with the status quo of Randy Orton and John Cena. It was just far and few between. So now also Big E will become someone who was lost, standing around doing nothing. So you had in 2014, Big E, Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, all 3 super talented guys doing nothing in the mid-card. However, by late 2014, something will happen.
Oh, good grief.
Xavier Woods, Big E Langston, and Kofi Kingston will come together as semi-preachers preaching positivity, being super corny and annoying, yet they were supposed to be baby faces and absolutely were not getting over as baby faces and decided to take their squad, their team, their careers in their own hands. And in spite of the man in charge, Vince McMahon, started to do things their own way. It is here to where we got to see the true personalities of Big E, of Kofi Kingston, of Xavier Woods, guys who have been relegated to the mid-card for years. Well, now they're not only entertaining, they're edgy, they're fun, but they're also winners as well. You know, doing the unicorn heads, the booty-os, they make sure that you ain't booty. And everything in between, from Kofi twerking all the time, it should not work, is what I'm saying. It should not have worked. But when you're good and when you're hot, everything works. They were just an extension of themselves, of their personalities, on 10. And this was during a time to where WWE was completely stale. New Day was like the shining light during a time to where nobody was giving the creative freedom to do something new, something innovative. I mean, they deemed Roman Reigns as their new face of the company, and Roman was still relegated to doing the gimmick of the Shield when everyone else in his group, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, were able to create their own personality and their own persona. So yeah, we were during a space and time to where creativity and uniqueness and specialty wasn't really something that was going on. But New Day broke the mold. They broke through that glass ceiling of creativity that was put upon them in the WWE in the mid-2010s. I mean, they came out at WrestleMania out of a box of bootios. Like, who else would have done that? Like, that's unheard of. That's unheard. Like, they, not only that, but they became the longest reigning tag team champions at a point. They even hosted WrestleMania. Like, they literally did everything you can do as a faction and as a tag team. They even started a podcast together, going over other topics. Xavier created one of the most innovative and unique channels with Up, Up, Down, Down, where not only him, but his peers and colleagues could talk about video games and nerd out over, action figures and all kinds of things that united the locker room. I mean, these guys were truly the MVP of the entire WWE. And then 2019 happens. Mustafa Ali, who was supposed to be in the Elimination Chamber, gets injured. And who replaces him but Kofi Kingston? Within a span of a couple weeks, organically this storyline is built. Now he's been given a chance of a lifetime like never before. Kofi does not only earn a shot in the Elimination Chamber, makes it all the way down to the final two, goes head up with Daniel Bryan, the new Daniel Bryan, and they put on a mini 10-minute match that lights the world on fire. They put on a clinic to where Kofi is by a centimeter close to becoming a world champion. The crowd was into it. The fans believe it. The commentators believed it. Kofi believed it. But just like that, Daniel Bryan takes him out and defeats him to retain the WWE title. And I'm like, that was a nice moment. But then after Daniel Bryan retains and leaves the chamber, they linger on Kofi as well as Big E and Xavier as the whole entire crowd is not only screaming for Kofi, but you see signs of Kofimania. In the back of my mind, I'm like, are they going to actually push Kofi Kingston? Nah, they're not going to actually do that, huh? And then organically within the next few days, Kofimania really becomes a movement. From blogs to signs to videos on YouTube, everyone is on the Kofimania train, as everyone wants to see Kofi Kingston win the WWE Championship. And rightfully so. Kofi has been the model for professionalism. In a business that is always out for self, Kofi has always been the opposite, that is always looking out for others. How can I make others look great? How can I make others look good? How can I make sure we have the best match possible? How can I make sure that other people shine? That has been the story of Kofi Kingston. So yeah, now that he has a chance to become the world champion, the WWE champion, this is not just a storyline. This is shoot, brother. Everybody wanted to see Kofi Kingston win because he deserved it. So in the following weeks after Elimination Chamber, Vince McMahon comes out there and basically calls Kofi Kingston a B+ player, that you're a fine employee and a fine worker and all that, but just people like you just don't become world champion. Now I was getting scared because it was going into Triple H Booker T territory. What do you mean you people don't become world champion? They never quite got into that realm, but Big E and Xavier kind of alluded to it. It's like, nah, we're not doing that. Kofi was given a chance to fight for the world title at WrestleMania. And so he goes out there He wrestles for over an hour. He's never done that. He's never wrestled for more than probably 20 minutes in the ring on TV. But wrestles over an hour and defeats all his opponents only to be beat by Daniel Bryan, the champion. And it's like, damn, Kofi, you almost had it. But then the next week, Vince McMahon says, you know what? I'll give you another shot. And this is where the angle gets very intriguing because now it's on his team members, it's on his brothers to win a gauntlet match of their own, a tag team gauntlet match in order for Kofi to get a chance at the title of WrestleMania. And through it all, even their biggest rival of the Usos, who the Usos and the New Day had a storied rivalry for the ages, even the Usos had enough respect for the New Day to be like, nah, you go get that world championship for Kofi, son. We out. And through it all, Xavier and Big E fight for their brother, fight for their family, and earn Kofi Kingston a shot for the world title of WrestleMania. Something we've never, ever, ever seen in a storyline. Something unique, something special. And that would be what this would be, Kofimania. It's something unique, something special. So now Kofi is going into WrestleMania 35 to face the new Daniel Bryan, and Kofi, who has a whole entire locker room behind him, the whole entire WWE universe behind him, now has his chance to prove all his doubters wrong, to prove everyone that believed in him right, and he will not let this opportunity slip away from him. Then WrestleMania happens. I was so nervous, I was anxious. From 1999 to 2019, 20 years being a wrestling fan. From absolutely loving wrestling to despising wrestling, falling out of love for it, falling back in love with it. A toxic relationship I've had with wrestling for over 20 years. From the scandals, from the people dying, my favorites dying, the crimes, everything. The ups and downs as a wrestling fan for 20 years. This all culminates to this one moment. But in the words of The Rock, this wasn't just a black thing, wasn't just a white thing. It was me kicking your ass thing, proving that no matter the obstacle, no matter the walls put in front of you, the glass ceilings, no matter how long you're told no, no matter how long you're told you're not good enough, no matter how long you're just seen as lesser than, keep persevering, keep striving, keep pushing. Do not give up. This sight of Kofi Kingston win the world title was just of that, of not giving up. Xavier refused to give up. Big E refused to give up. Kofi refused to give up. And in the end, we got this.
Kofi measuring the champion. Trouble in paradise. Kofi did it. Kofi did it. Kofi did it. Kofi is champion.
Here is your winner and the new WWE champion, Kofi Kingston.
11 years. 11 long years. Every hoop, every barricade, every hurdle, and finally, Kofi Kingston is done it, man.
I'm the best. I'm the best in the world.